bracing for a hurricane, the race to prepare for Dorian as the storm gains strength, lashing Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands with heavy winds and rain, now threatening to slam into Florida as a Category 3 storm, with winds topping 120 miles per hour. The new track and timing as we head into the holiday weekend, we're taking you inside the storm with the hurricane hunters.
Airlines on alert for the storm and the holiday rush, with millions set to fly. More than 100 flights already canceled. Will this be a nightmare weekend for travelers?
Urgent vaping alert. The major city now warning residents to stop vaping immediately. 16 people in the state hospitalized with severe lung disease. And now the new report this morning, how Juul is trying to stop underage vaping.
Deadly boat crash, Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary on a boat that crashed into another, killing 2 people, what he says happened.
Candid camera, Ring doorbell cameras, helping hundreds of police departments form a new neighborhood watch. Now, the new privacy questions.
And eruption in Italy. The major volcano sending lava and rocks flying, tourists fleeing, and a massive cloud of smoke more than a mile into the sky.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America, and thank you for joining us on this Thursday morning. And we want to get right to Hurricane Dorian, now a Category 1 storm and gaining strength on a path toward the U.S. mainland.
Yeah, overnight, the storm traveling through the Caribbean. Here's what it looked like in St. Thomas. Puerto Rico thankfully avoiding that direct hit, but the island is still dealing with heavy rains and strong winds.
And let's take a look now at the satellite, guys, showing the storm churning through the Atlantic. You can see how big this storm is.
Our team is spread out across the storm zone with the very latest. Rob Marciano, he's going to start us off with the storm's track right now here in the studio. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Michael. This is St. Thomas yesterday. 82-mile-an-hour sustained winds with gusts to 111 and a half a foot of rain that just got hammered in the U.S. Virgin Islands there. Thankfully, Puerto Rico just got skimmed. Here's the satellite radar composite. You see the radar beginning to fade now as it gets farther away from the radar site in Puerto Rico, about 175 miles north of the island there, with 85-mile-per-hour winds and heading towards the northwest at about 13 miles an hour. So the track is for Category 1 today, becoming a Category 2. That means winds of 96 miles an hour, and then Category 3 tomorrow. And then look at the track getting towards Florida here. As far as the forecast error is concerned, of 4 and 5 days out, it's about 200 miles. So that means even though the track right now between Fort Lauderdale and Cape Canaveral, really all of Florida is in play here. And then beyond that, we have to watch that into the Gulf of Mexico, potentially. Here's what's driving it. High pressure, low pressure. High pressure is going to win out. That's going to dive down to the south and drive this and turn it off towards the west. There's some of our individual computer models give you an idea of just how uncertain we are with the track of this thing. And not only that, it's a very small storm at the moment. These are really difficult to track and often can rapidly intensify. That may very well happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll watch it. Cecilia?
Yeah, it's going to be a dire next few hours. Okay, Rob, thank you. Puerto Rico, as we said, thankfully avoiding a direct hit, but not escaping the effects of the storm, as many there are still recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Maria 2 years ago. Victor Kendo is in San Juan, Puerto Rico, with the very latest. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Cecilia. A huge sigh of relief here in Puerto Rico. At one point, Dorian's path shifted so much the entire island was bracing for a hit, but it was the U.S. and British Virgin Islands that ended up taking the brunt of the storm.
Hurricane Dorian taking aim at the U.S. and British Virgin Islands.
Yeah, that's for real.
Gaining strength over the open Atlantic, leaving a wake of flooding and damage in its path throughout the Caribbean.
Really seeing it both start to build upward and out. They're becoming a stronger storm.
The so-called dirty side of the storm coming in strong, packing intense winds and up to 8 inches of rain, knocking out power to almost 40,000 people. These residents taking cover as the intense winds began to get stronger.
It is here.
And these boats tossing back and forth in the high tides in St. Thomas. Dorian already inundating the island of Martinique on Tuesday. Heavy rains causing severe flooding, leaving this bus trapped and many more stranded. Here in Puerto Rico, they dodged a bullet. The governor speaking out overnight, saying, "Thank God we were not affected." The community still reeling from Hurricane Maria.
This was the first major test for Puerto Rico since Maria killed nearly 3,000 people in 2017. From the local municipalities to FEMA, they were ready for Dorian, and they know the season is far from over. Tom?
But Victor, you said it earlier, Puerto Rico dodged that bullet. The latest track, though, now has the hurricane heading towards Florida, now under a state of emergency. Residents racing to stock up on supplies, leaving empty shelves behind. And concern is growing Dorian could be a Category 3 hurricane when it reaches the mainland. Gio Benitez is in Miami now with the latest on how people are preparing. Gio, good morning.
Hey, Tom, good morning to you. We're already seeing stores running low on water and supplies. People here aren't taking any chances, even though this storm is still days away. Floridians up and down the East Coast gearing up for Hurricane Dorian. Residents hitting supermarkets in droves, stocking up on the necessities.
Batteries, paper towels, liquor.
But the main thing on everyone's list, water. This Costco in Miami trying to maintain order, making customers line up single file.
Everybody relax. It is still the same line.
Limiting members to only 4 cases of water.
Gosh, it was crazy. Everybody was scrambling for water.
A similar scene at another Costco north of Miami.
I don't know how fast they're getting the word out, but as soon as I have a truck that backs up, I have a line forming for that water.
In Jacksonville, late shoppers finding stores with empty shelves.
Did you come here looking for water?
Somewhat, yeah.
Drivers swarming gas stations, waiting in long lines, fearing potential fuel shortages that plagued the state in the wake of Hurricane Irma.
You get ready and that's it. You can't do anything more.
And we keep emphasizing this time. If you are anywhere along the southeastern coast, now is the time to prepare when you can still get your hands on water, supplies, and gas. It's just so important, Michael.
All right, thank you, Jill. As we see people preparing, multiple airlines are preparing as well by issuing travel waivers and canceling more than 100 flights. This is millions prepared to hit the sky for the holiday weekend. Steve Osensami is at the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, with the latest. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, Michael. Traffic here is moving well this morning, but the airlines are watching this storm closely, worried about the impact that this storm will have on their flight schedules. So far, they're offering travel waivers to passengers flying in and out of 32 airports, mostly in Florida and the Caribbean. 9 airlines are issuing those travel waivers. Delta Airlines, for example, is one of them, headquartered here. So far, all of the flight cancellations we're seeing are in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, but that will change depending on the track of the storm. Travelers hoping to take advantage of those flight waivers need to check with their airlines because they are only good for specific dates. 12 cruise ships have also had to change their schedules because of the storm, impacting tens of thousands of travelers. Royal Caribbean is also closing its private island in the Bahamas for a week. Tom?
Yeah, the timing really couldn't be worse. All right, Steve, thanks so much. And even without a hurricane, this would be a chaotic travel weekend. A record 17.5 million passengers expected to fly over the next few days. Nearly 3 million passengers on Friday alone. Today is expected to be the busiest on the road, especially between 4 and 6 p.m. Let's go to WABC's Shannon Stone in the chopper right now over the tri-state area. Shannon, good morning.
And with summer slipping away, now might be the right time to slip into the traffic. So we'll take you outside and show you what it looks like right now at the RFK Bridge, which links Queens, Manhattan, and the Bronx. So you can see it's not too bad right now. But as you mentioned, during the evening commute and during the lunchtime between 11 and 1, that is when it is expected to be at its worst, with cars expected to take 7 minutes to go just 1 mile. So essentially, you could run to your vacation and your last hurrah of the summer faster. So you might want to grab lunch or dinner before heading out on the road. Back to you, Cecilia.
Okay, thank you so much. And we will have much more on the travel rush and Hurricane Dorian ahead, but we are now going to turn to the morning's other top stories.
After the unpredictable storm spares Puerto Rico from a direct hit.
We don't know where this is going to go, so it's time to be calm. Make sure you know your zone.
So how bad could it be, and how will it affect your holiday weekend? Al's tracking it all. Then, dress for success? Why more public schools around the country are requiring students to wear school uniforms.
With the uniforms, and they have the specific colors, you already know what she's going to wear the next day.
Just ahead, how major retailers are cashing in on the classroom attire. And Queen of Country will catch up with Grammy winner Trisha Yearwood as she prepares for the release of her first solo album in more than a decade. She'll give us a sneak peek with a live performance today, Thursday, August 29th, 2019.
Today's my 9th birthday!
Here with my mom celebrating her 75th. Happy birthday, Selma! Yeah, this is a perfect love we're doing Sisters Weekend from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Just graduated with my master's.
Celebrating Jean's
50th birthday.
And a happy birthday to you, good sir, and welcome back to Today on this Thursday morning. Craig Melvin here alongside Kristen Walker, who's in for Savannah. As Hoda makes the most of her final days of maternity leave, she'll be back, of course, next Tuesday, September 3rd. Mark your calendars. Lots of smiles, lots of laughs. Can't wait to have her back in Studio 1A.
That's right. The whole family will be back together again. Everyone looking forward to that. And we want to check something out outside. We have something very special happening on the plaza right now. Volunteers with Operation Backpack are loading up supplies to make sure all kids have the tools they need for the start of the new school year. We'll have more on that on Just Ahead. And Craig, I can't wait for this story because it's so important for these kids to arrive at school with their supplies.
Prepared, ready to go.
Exactly.
We're going to go outside and help stuff some backpacks in just a bit. It is a busy morning, though, so let's get straight to your news at 8 o'clock. Parts of Florida are under a state of emergency this morning as Hurricane Dorian grows stronger as it makes its way to the East Coast. Al's got the latest update for us. Al, what are we seeing right now?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. We normally get an update at 8 a.m. from the National Hurricane Center. However, they have not issued it yet, and so that might mean that there are changes afoot that they are still working on. But here's what we have from the latest. 85-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. Track of the storm. We won't get an updated track until 11 o'clock, but this is the latest. A Category 3 storm by Saturday morning at 2 a.m. It continues towards the Bahamas as a 3, makes a landfall sometime Monday morning, and then moves inland on Tuesday as a Category 1 storm. Comparing the other tracks to the National Hurricane Center track, the American model makes landfall in northern Florida from Monday night. The European model, South Florida on Monday evening. So we're going to watch these systems as they kind of converge, but until then, we don't have consensus. We do, though, know that we're going to be looking at a very high risk of hurricane force winds by Sunday evening moving into the central eastern Florida coast. And as far as rainfall is concerned, we are talking about 4 to 8 inches generally from central to into southern Florida, but upwards of 12 inches in some spots. But again, we still have a number of days while it's out over open water, so we'll be watching this closely. Kristen?
We know you will be. All right, Al, thank you for that. To politics.
A state of emergency across Florida. Residents lining up for gas, supplies, and sandbags. When will it hit and where? We just got the latest update. Rob Marciano standing by. Also new tonight, the DOJ saying former FBI Director James Comey violated FBI policies in his handling of memos about President Trump. The Justice Department declined to prosecute. Why Comey says he's the one who's owed an apology. The growing alarm about vaping as one American city urges everyone to stop immediately. The sharp rise in the number of severe lung injuries. What do we really know about the safety of these products? The school bus scare. A child nearly struck when a driver blows past the bus with its stop sign extended. The warning from that mother to other parents. Escaping the volcano, a massive eruption throwing lava, rock, and ash into the sky, then raining down as nearby tourists flee. Out of control, the hot air balloon bouncing off the ground, the pilot and a passenger thrown from the basket. And America Strong, Alex Trebek is back for a new season of Jeopardy amid questions about his cancer fight. Tonight, his message to fans.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
And good evening. It's great to have you with us on a busy Thursday night. I'm Tom Yamas, in for David. And as we come on tonight, all eyes are on Dorian. It could now be a Category 4 storm when it slams ashore. Here's the latest storm track with landfall shifting slightly to the south. You can see that right here. But all of Florida is now in a state of emergency and parts of Georgia as well. Dorian already hammering the U.S. Virgin Islands on St. Thomas, roofs blown off, and an island-wide blackout left behind. More than 17 million people on the U.S. mainland now bracing for impact. Long lines at gas stations, some already drained dry. A run on lumber to protect windows from the fierce wind, and the race to meet the need for bottled water. People being warned to stock up with several days' supply. Tonight, Dorian is shaping up to be one of the strongest hurricanes to strike the Florida coast in years. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano starts us off tracking it all from Florida. Rob, good evening.
Good evening, Tom. Hurricane Dorian now about 800 miles from here over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean with a lot of warm water and time to get better organized, and it's doing just that. Here's a satellite picture. You can see it, 85-mile-per-hour winds sustained. It has tropical storm force winds that range about 120 miles across, but it's heading into an area that has low wind shear and warm waters. That combination is going to allow it to strengthen potentially rapidly. That high pressure is going to scoot it off to the west toward the U.S. So here's the forecast track when timing. It has slowed a little bit so that by Sunday afternoon, maybe early Monday, it's just off the coastline as a Category 4 storm with 130 miles an hour winds, likely making landfall Monday or Tuesday. But a lot of uncertainty here. There are two most reliable computer models. The European model and the American GFS are completely different. The GFS comes here and then goes north. The European goes towards Miami and then scoots up the coastline. So we'll hope to get better grasp on this tomorrow. They're going to launch extra weather balloons tonight, more recon aircraft, so the confidence in the forecast should increase tomorrow. But one thing is for sure, a high-impact storm is likely to come to Florida, so residents here need to be prepared over this weekend. Tom?
Rob Marciano and his team tracking all that storm. As we said, Florida is in a state of emergency tonight as Hurricane Dorian barrels towards the mainland. People are already waiting in long lines for gas and water and other supplies. ABC's Gio Benitez is in Miami tonight with the rush to get ready.
Tonight, worried residents are lining up across the entire state of Florida, snapping up supplies.
Good morning.
Outside this Lowe's near Orlando before dawn, racing to get generators, and long waits for fuel at this Tampa area Costco.
This is what we're seeing all across South Florida, people preparing for this storm, loading up that plywood to board up their homes.
At this Miami Home Depot, we met Jose Noriega buying 26 sandbags.
Obviously planning for the worst possible, but hoping for the best.
Dorian tore through the U.S. and British Virgin Islands Wednesday, winds gusting above 110 miles per hour, ripping this roof to pieces. And tonight, it's getting stronger by the minute. Florida's governor today telling residents the time to prepare is now.
You should have 7 days of food and medicine and water.
With more than 17 million people, nearly the entire state of Florida in the cone of uncertainty, mass evacuations are likely.
It's mind-boggling because nobody knows exactly where this storm's going.
Hurricane hunters flying inside Dorian, trying to track the storm's every movement. At the Kennedy Space Center, NASA using this crawler to move a 400-foot tall mobile launcher out of harm's way. Florida Power and Light bracing for outages, some 15,000 transformers on hand, 5,000 crew members standing by.
We are ready, we're prepared, and we will address all the outages as they happen.
Dorian now potentially the strongest hurricane to strike Florida's east coast since Andrew, a Category 5 in 1992. The last Category 4, Irma, in 2017, first making landfall in the Florida Keys, packing winds of 130 miles per hour.
Andrew and Irma leaving back so much devastation. Gio joins us now live from Home Depot in Miami. Gio, the storm's still several days away from making landfall, but there are still questions about where it will hit. But from what you're seeing right now, some people seem to be taking this very seriously.
Oh, they sure are, Tom. This is a very busy store right now. And take a look at these shelves behind me because some of them have just emptied out because so many people are buying this plywood to board up their homes. The manager here says he hasn't seen it this busy in years. Tom?
The rush is on. All right, Gio, thank you. And of course, Hurricane Dorian is arriving just ahead of Labor Day, disrupting a busy travel weekend. A record 17.5 million passengers were set to fly over the next few days, with millions more planning to drive. Tonight, their plans could be changing. ABC's Kaylee Hartung is at the airport in Jacksonville, Florida tonight. Kaylee.
Tom, all the major airlines are issuing travel waivers starting tomorrow for flights into Florida's big airports like the one here in Jacksonville. But the impacts of Dorian as it approaches will be felt far beyond this state. Throughout Florida, airports are securing equipment, the military safeguarding planes too, and the Coast Guard, they're strapping down boats. But the big question for the millions who live here is what will happen on the state's major roads. Officials trying to avoid a repeat of some of the traffic nightmares that happened in the lead up to Hurricane Irma. So crews are clearing up construction along the roadways in advance of any potential evacuation orders. Tom.
Kaylee Hartung for us tonight. Kaylee, thank you.
Breaking news tonight, Hurricane Dorian taking dead aim at Florida. The new track as we come on the air. Dorian gaining strength, poised to strike as a powerful Category 4 storm this holiday weekend. The storm surge potentially life-threatening. States of emergency just declared in Georgia, expanded to every county in Florida. Millions on alert. The rush to get ready. President Trump canceling a trip overseas to monitor the storm. Al Roker is tracking it all. Also tonight, under fire, former FBI Chief James Comey. The Justice Department's watchdog finding Comey violated rules by leaked memos of private conversations with President Trump. How the president is reacting. The urgent warning for e-cigarette users. Stop vaping immediately, health officials say.
I had no idea what was happening inside my body, and that is very scary.
Tonight, the numbers of vapors with lung disease growing. The shocking surveillance. A pregnant jail inmate in labor. Her cries for help, she says, went ignored. The woman forced to give birth in her cell alone. The terrifying discovery. A massive arsenal, dozens of guns, 8 grenades, more than 2,000 rounds inside the home. And that's not all police found. And the slam dunk that seems impossible until you see it with your own eyes.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Welker in for Lester. We begin tonight with the millions of Americans bracing for what could be a dangerous and deadly storm. Hurricane Dorian is intensifying as it churns toward the U.S. The storm is expected to strengthen to a Category 4 hurricane before hitting Florida over the holiday weekend. With Dorian on that collision course, many are now preparing for a direct hit, stocking up on food and medicine, and some are even getting out of town. Tonight, there is an expanded state of emergency in Florida and parts of Georgia, and we begin our coverage with Al Roker. Al, what are you seeing out there?
Kristen, the latest from the National Hurricane Center, 85-mile-per-hour winds with Dorian, northwesterly movement at 13 miles per hour. It quickly becomes a Category 3 tomorrow, a Category 4 on Sunday. Landfall, Central Florida on Monday afternoon. The American model, landfall Central Florida on Monday. In the European, down in southern Florida on Tuesday. Catastrophic winds over the Bahamas on Sunday. Hurricane force winds for Florida on Monday. And the rainfall, coastal sections of the southeastern Florida area, 5 to 10 inches of rain, isolated 15 inches. We're still watching these models trying to coalesce, and we haven't even talked about storm surge yet. Kristen, it really bears watching all weekend long.
Indeed. All right, Al Roker, thank you for that. And in Florida tonight, the state's 21 million people have been placed on alert. Residents racing to get ready and tourists scrambling to get out as Dorian approaches. The Coast Guard late today raising the alert level for Port Canaveral. And that is where we find NBC's Kathy Park tonight.
Hurricane Dorian slammed into the Caribbean, flooding streets, toppling trees, and capsizing boats, but spared the islands from major disaster. Now the storm has its eye on Florida and is expected to hit the state as a dangerous Category 4. The governor issuing this blunt warning.
The time to act is now. If you haven't acted, act to make preparations. Do not wait until it's too late.
Residents in Davie packed as Costco, stocking up for days' worth of food and supplies. Some stores not able to keep up with the demand. NASA isn't taking any chances either, moving hardware out of harm's way at Kennedy Space Center. Meanwhile, on the Central Coast, where tourism is key, restaurants are struggling to fill seats on what would typically be a bustling Labor Day weekend.
We've probably dropped 30–40% in business.
The beach also thinned out.
Really only like us and a few other people here. 2 days ago, it was totally stacked.
Vacationers cutting their holiday short.
The tourism is definitely going to be a little down this year.
But getting in and out of Florida may pose a problem.
Pack a lot of patience. You may find long lines, longer than you expected here this weekend because people are trying to get out of town earlier.
As all signs show Dorian settling in for the long weekend.
And Port Canaveral is one of the busiest cruise ports in the world, and tonight cruise lines are modifying itineraries for their guests to ensure their safety as Hurricane Dorian moves in. Kristen?
Kathy Park, thank you for that report from Florida. And as Dorian barrels toward the U.S. mainland, we wanted to give you an idea of exactly what it's like to be inside a hurricane and feel those extremely powerful winds. NBC's Kristen Dahlgren with more on what could be in store when Dorian is expected to blast ashore.
With all the talk of wind speeds and categories, the University of Maryland's Research Wind Tunnel shows us what that really means.
All right, we're at tropical storm force winds. This is too late to be boarding up your windows.
By the time we hit hurricane strength at 74 miles an hour.
And I can't walk against this anymore. Category 1 older mobile homes might be destroyed. We'd see some damage. We'd start to see a lot of power lines down. Even some stronger structures would see some roof damage. 96 miles an hour. We are now at category 2 strength. These winds are way too strong. I can barely lean into them anymore.
Category 2 can bring damage to older structures, uprooted trees, and significant power outages.
This is a category 3 now. For you, it's devastating damage. It's the older homes destroyed, the power and water out for several days, maybe weeks.
So that's as high as they let us go. Add in storm surge and a Cat 4 or 5 can be catastrophic. But what researchers learned from tests here can be life-saving.
People think that they're prepared, but once the winds pick up, once the water rises, they're not as prepared as they think.
A stark warning. That the time to get ready may quickly run out. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News, College Park, Maryland.
Tonight, Dorian's on a collision course with Florida and could be a Category 4 hurricane when it hits on Labor Day. The state of emergency is extended throughout the state. We're there as Florida prepares for the worst. Also tonight, officials in one city urge everyone to stop using e-cigarettes as cases of lung damage mount. A new report blasts fired FBI Director James Comey for violating FBI policies in his handling of memos about his conversations with the president. But he won't face charges. Severely ill immigrant children being treated in U.S. hospitals could be deported because of a change in policy by the Trump administration. Disturbing video, a woman in labor left alone for hours in a jail cell. No one came to her aid. Now she's suing. Trouble at the palace. What's causing the Queen's guards to fall down on the job? And red light cameras save lives, so why are some cities banning them?
This is the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
Good evening. Nora is off tonight. I'm John Dickerson. This is our Western edition. Hurricane Dorian is now expected to hit even harder than previously thought, prompting a widened state of emergency in Florida. This evening, an emergency was declared also in Georgia. This ominous view from the space station shows the storm morphing into a monster over the Atlantic today. Dorian is now on track to make landfall early Monday, Labor Day, as a powerful Category 4 hurricane. It could be the strongest direct hit to Florida's east coast since Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Late today, President Trump canceled a weekend visit to Poland to focus on the federal storm response. We turn now to Lonnie Quinn, chief weathercaster at WCBS in New York. Lonnie, what's the latest?
Well, the latest is, you just said it, this could potentially be a top 10 storm in Florida throughout its history. Now, if you take a peek at the latest information from the National Hurricane Center, it's still a Category 1. The winds haven't changed, still 85 miles per hour. This is kind of key. It's moving to the northwest at 13 miles per hour. If that slows down, it can strengthen more, and that's all part of what we're watching. Number one, there is superheated water in front of this storm. You need water temperatures of 79 degrees to maintain a hurricane. If it's warmer than that, that storm can really grow. This water is going to travel over 85 to 90 degrees. All right, so this is why we think it's going to get much larger than it is. Also, that forward speed slows down. Right now, we just said, hey, it's moving at 13 miles per hour. By the time this gets close to affecting land, it's going to be moving at between 4 and 6 miles per hour. Again, the slower it moves, the more chance it gets to grow over that warm water and the longer that it affects a certain area. So inland flooding could be a big deal. If you take a peek at the high-pressure system that's going to steer this, we know it's going to push it towards the southeastern portion of the U.S. But exactly where is it going to make that turn? And this is why we are on alert from Savannah, Georgia, to the Keys of Florida, because look at the spaghetti models. I mean, they're all over the place. I want to point this out. This is the European model right here, having it coming into South Florida, but then it sort of buzzsaws right at the coastline, constantly pushing on shore. Storm surge, a big problem, a huge problem potentially with this storm. John, let's go over to you.
Lonnie making it clear for us. Thank you, Lonnie. On Florida's Space Coast, the storm has prompted NASA to move its $650 million mobile rocket launcher into storage for safekeeping. Others are launching themselves towards stores and gas stations to stock up. David Begnaud is in Merritt Island, where folks are lining up for sandbags. David?
John, the line to get sandbags has been close to a half mile today. People have been waiting. How long you been here, ma'am? Since 11 a.m. this morning. One woman said she was here for 8 hours. That's the pile of sand. Just when you get to the front, there's roughly 10 bags that the inmates from the county jail will fill for you, and then you are on your way. This is not the only line for sandbags in the county. There are several dozen. We actually got a time lapse today as we drove what seemed like 10 city blocks where people were stopped trying to get sandbags. Met a woman named Jamie. Her daughter Mackenzie, a toddler, was in the back seat, had been there with mom for 6 hours in a car seat while she waited to get sandbags. Listen, up and down the state, it's not only sand people are trying to get, it's water, food, and fuel. There are lines outside of places like Costco, Sam's, and Walmart. Some stores are telling people you get 4 cases of water per family. That's it. The governor here in Florida has said there is a ton of fuel. We are seeing fuel lines, nothing really out of hand. Speaking of the governor, he's declared a state of emergency for every single county in Florida, and he said today, I did that because the cone of uncertainty is so wide, we don't know if it's going to hit Miami or Jacksonville or somewhere in between. So he wants everybody ready to go. John, tonight, airlines are waiving fees. If you're flying in or out, you can have your ticket canceled for free. There is a behemoth operation underway right now to prepare in the state of Florida.
David Begnaud in Merritt Island. Thank you, David. Now an update.